In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. St. John, the New Testament. In the beginning, in the sudden stillness of the yet undefinable, trembling, perhaps to the trauma of birth, there, within a thought, in the eye of God, appeared earth. And like a quiet mist, the Spirit descended and was called man. Wandering silently in the endless night, pondering, he reached outward and stared upward with one thought, one question, one word: why? Why? Behold, a dreamer. And rising from the many, he spoke of wonders in a strange and faraway voice, of other places and times yet to be, and his words passed one to another like a song. From that day to this day, and on into forever. And they called him a prophet. Born once upon the brightest star, there came a child of infinity. He spoke to wise men near and far about the many things he knew, and where he walked the purest flowers grew. In those last days, the beloved apostle, the one most loved by Jesus, stared off into the infinite Aegean Sea from exile on the island of Patmos. 100, perhaps more, weakened by the burden of the faith, awed by the power of the Lord, he dwelt within the corridors of time. And in a cave, they say, witnessed eternity. The revelation of St. John, the divine. 7 candlesticks, 7 stars, 7 angels, 7 vials with 7 plagues. A lamb, 7 horns, 7 eyes, 7 spirits of the Lord, and a book with 7 seals, a woman cloaked by the sun, locusts, elders all around, and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, a beast with 7 heads, 10 horns, the body of a leopard, feet of a bear, and the mouth of a lion, and a harlot in purple and scarlet, and chariots of fire, and the coming of the Son of Man. Awesome. Complex. The only prophetic vision of the New Testament. So much like Daniel's vision. Ezekiel's wheel within a wheel. Why? The old apostle began to write. He agonized, tossed within the grip of a million unanswerable questions. He stared down at his letter to the 7 churches in Asia. Would they understand, thought the old man? Would the language of the angels, the messengers, hold true? 24 elders encircle the 24 divisions of the Hebrew zodiac. Eyes all around the planets. And the 4-faced figure, the 4 fixed signs in their original symbolism. The ox of Taurus, the eagle of Scorpio, the lion of Leo, and the Aquarian man. Astrologers? No. Part of the oral tradition of secrecy carried out of Egypt, Babylon, Rome, 12 sons, 12 tribes, 12 signs. Not more, not less, 12. And 6. The number of the considered planets. The sun and the moon considered the lights. To include the earth made 7. The perfect number. The number of completeness in the language of the angels. Surely the churches would have the wisdom, thought the old man, the understanding. And those in the future, in so many languages, so many cultures, so much time, would not the serpent always be evil, and the lamb innocence? Would not the bear always be the north, and the dragon Asia? Gold, the symbol of life. Fire, the spirit. Air, the intellect. Was not Jesus called the Prince of Fire, and Satan the Prince of the Air? Streets of pure gold, transparent like glass mingled with fire. Could it mean anything else to them when speaking of New Jerusalem after the coming, than that the city of peace and all of its life was pure and had the Spirit? How could it mean anything else? So many thoughts, so many sorrows for the old one. Pondering the future in a wondering manner, he thought, the whole world would see his coming at one time. How is that possible? A satellite in orbit, a tiny beam of light encircling the Earth like a bright star. How could he have known? How could he have imagined a third of the Earth watching a simple sporting event? What then of the coming? It mystified even the most beloved of Jesus. What then would others make of it? Gog, Magog, the awful king of the north, the kings of the east crossing the dried Euphrates River, which now contains 2 dams and can be dried up in 24 hours according to Arab leaders. How could he have known that? An army of 200 million into the Middle East. Who could mount such a force? The Chinese have just completed a highway across the mountains along the ancient Silk Route. How could he have known that? And the beast, his mark, his number. Without it you perish. Mystery Babylon, that great harlot. A city, yes, but a church also. In purple and scarlet, the colors of Rome. And the virgin bride, rising to meet the coming of the Son of Man in the air. How is that possible, wondered the old man. The world wonders after the beast which is wounded in the head but lives. If the beast is an empire, risen out of another empire, then is the head its capital. A city with a wound? A divided city. The number and the mark of the beast. The number of a man. A man? He spoke to shepherd and to kings about a paradise beyond the sky. And those with eyes enough to see, they knew him as eternally, the child and the lamb of destiny. He whispered off into legend, St. John. The revelation remained. Empires melded into one another. Prophets came and faded. From time to time, visionaries would rise. Leaders, dictators, antichrists. Charlemagne, Napoleon, the Kaiser, Hitler. World orders created by world wars. But the great work continued. The word spread. The spirit of the word made flesh dwelt among men. In 1,000 manners, in 1,000,000 ways. And in the world knowledge increased. Confusion, perdition, while Ezekiel's scroll unrolled and Daniel's imperial image stared down. St. John's vision? When? Tomorrow. 10 years. Tonight. The beast, the Antichrist, does he walk among us? His terrible number, what of it? The mystery continues. Spoke he of history, he spoke of prophecy. Warning, forewarning of judgments to come. Beware, beware, said he, beware of enemies of the commandments of God and his Son. Is this the generation of revelation? Or the gathering of Armageddon? All the armies of the world at Armageddon. Where will you be? How will you know? When? All the planets within 5 degrees of one another. The grand conjunction. And the end of the age near the end of the century. The long-awaited age of Aquarius. In ancient thought, the Star of Bethlehem was believed to be a cluster of planets, so close and so bright that it appeared to be one great star, ushering in an era of mystical idealism. Perhaps the age of Pisces, symbolized by the fish. But there were many strange beliefs in those days, handed down from Babylon, Egypt, Greece, Rome. Even the one God of Israel was held captive to accumulated tradition and mindless dogma. It was a world lost in pagan superstition, wandering aimlessly in a wasteland of hedonism and fear. But the time was ripe for a new idea, a New Testament. Yet now, 2,000 years later, we stand once again, waiting, watching, knowing that before a new age will come, the old one must end. Behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat upon him was Death, and hell followed with him. St. John, the New Testament. From the bottomless pit of time thunders the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the red horse of war, the black horse of famine, the pale horse of pestilence, and the white horse of the false prophet. And 7 trumpets sound. The 7th seal opens. 7 vials pour 7 plagues upon the earth. Wars, earthquakes, disease, falling stars, armies like locusts swarming about, and all the wonders implied by the perfect number in the language of the angels. 7. Totality in its ultimate form. World government. Man's eternal dream. yet always a Tower of Babel crumbling under the weight of confusion and conflicting voices. Rome came closer to world government than any before or since. Representational government as we know it is a Roman idea. As Greece gifted the world with culture, Rome gave it law. The law of men. First a tribe, then a village, soon an empire, and all in the name of a man. Romulus, the wolf boy, who legend has it was raised with his brother Remus by a wolf. Israel was the name of a man. America was named after a man. It's not unusual. But have you ever heard of Arminius? A citizen of Rome, he was sometimes referred to as Herman, which means army man, military man, warrior. He organized the Teutonic and Celtic tribes and defeated the Roman legions in the Teutoburg forest in 9 AD. And the Romans called his people the Sprout Men, or the Beginning Man, the New Man. In Latin, the Germani, Germany. And a dream was born on that day in the Teutoburg forest, and it lingers on today. Hitler called it the Third Reich. He referred to it as the United States of Europe. The Kaiser, which means Caesar, thought of it as a Neo-Roman empire. Napoleon tried, and Charlemagne established it as the Holy Roman Empire. He was the king of the Franks, West Germany. On the other hand, the German philosopher Karl Marx saw it as a political ideal, deified secular humanism. He referred to it as the New Man and called it communism. The beast, an empire, a city, an idea. The name of a man, his number 666, the number of his name, a number associated in the Bible with Solomon and kings. Seemingly his yearly average in talents of gold from his greatly overburdened people. Solomon, the wisest of the wise, the richest, all-powerful, inspired and ordained by God, yet in the end fallen to pagan abominations and demonic voices. Once worshipped, suddenly despised. His nation divided, his temple destroyed, his mark left forever in the eye of history as a symbol of the fallen angel, and a testament to the fragile nature of man. Here is wisdom, says St. John. Let him that have understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. Is he pointing out Solomon as a prototype of a leader to come, a raiser of taxes, a spreader of the wealth, an angel of enlightenment, yet a master of deceit, a leader of a 10-nation federation, and the catalyst of a religious renaissance? Will he heal the wounded city, coming to power on the back of the old world church, developing a new form of theocratic humanism? The new man. And would it be Rome rising from the ashes once again, heeding to the call of the earth god Manus, the lord of the Gormani and the tribes of Arminius. And the Fourth Reich is born. When asked for a sign of the end of times, Jesus referred to the abomination of desolation as spoken of by Daniel standing in the holy place. The holy place, Jerusalem, the city of peace, the spiritual center of the world, special in the history of three of the world's most influential religions, and always the ideal for dreamers of world government. The League of Nations, the United Nations both had eyes on Jerusalem as the world's first international city, the home of world government. Insiders, they say the United Nations wants to leave New York City someday. They cite cost, congestion, crime, terrorism as a growing problem. Jerusalem is the most policed city in the world, in the most security-conscious country on earth. The United Nations standing in Jerusalem gives to Israel the long-awaited status in the world community that it has sought. It also checkmates any attempt at nuclear blackmail by terrorist groups in the future. But it would stand there as a monument to the new man. Another tower of confusion, standing where it should not, striving not to make all things equal, but alike. And what about Armageddon? Gathered to battle in Israel. St. John says a great leader will rise, Gog from Magog, the king of the north, at the head of a 10-nation federation. The north? The north of what? To the Romans, the north was Europe. Russia was the east. Was that the outlook throughout the empire? Did St. John view it that way in exile on the island of that way? Arminius and his Teutons were the Northmen to the Romans, but then so were the Vikings, the Rus, which later settled Russia. Will this king of the north enter Israel as a defender of the faith, Israel, in the grasp of an awakened and unified Islam, from Africa, the Middle East, the subcontinent, and facing the thunder of the most populous religion on earth? Will the king of the north defeat the hordes of Islam, only to be set upon by the kings of the east as they swarm through Afghanistan like a plague of locusts, 200 million strong, crossing the dried Euphrates River, as John would put it? Is that what Russia is doing in Afghanistan? Preparing the way for China into the Middle East? Or rather, is it protecting its flanks in advance to a perceived invasion? Where else would 200 million troops come from? If the king of the north is defeated by the kings of the east, then what of them? Will Michael and the archangels come, the high messengers in clouds of glory and wings of light? It sounds like Star Wars, spaceships, with the Earth moving on its axis, the greatest earthquake in history. Scientists are already talking about that. They say it will change the weather. The Arctic regions may become semi-tropical and vice versa. Star maps may have to change by degrees. The Bible calls it a new heaven and a new earth. And yet, incredibly, Before all of this can happen, two witnesses will prophesy for a period of time in a manner of mourning. They're symbolized in the Bible by the two candlesticks and the two olive trees. Are they the two churches? The churches of the Old and the New Testament, the Church of Jesus Christ and the Church of Moses, Abraham, David. It says the world hates these two and they are killed and rendered harmless for a while, but eventually they're resurrected and taken up into the clouds. Is all this symbolic? Has it happened already? Are we talking about centuries of persecution of the Christians and the Jews and their testaments? Is all this symbolism taken up into the clouds? Does it simply mean risen above the turmoil? Some say it's literal. And what about the virgin bride? The whore of Babylon, the 144,000 witnesses not defiled with women. Woman, always the symbol of the church. St. John referred to the church in his gospel as the lady. The remnant church, the sealed few, who are actually a vast amount. Anything times 1,000 is a vast amount in the language of the angels. Not defiled with women? Does it mean not infected or confused by misleading ideas, not belonging to or subscribing to a humanistic or man-made bureaucratic manner of theology? Perhaps this group would be considered theological misfits? 144,000, the symbolic numbering of the original tribes, 12 times itself times 1,000. Perhaps the regrouping of the lost tribes of Israel, enlightening them to their true identity, both the 10 tribes called Israel and the tribes of Judah and Benjamin joined as one and called the Jews. And what of the beast? You can buy or sell without its mark, either in your forehead or in your hand. Mark, one of the oldest and more traditional terms for a form of exchange, a form of currency perhaps, an international credit card maybe. Would you be afraid to leave home without it? Will all you need be a little plastic card? An international social security system. If you don't comply, your card is taken away and you no longer exist. Computer credits instead of money. Currency backed by nothing but the honor of the state and the word of the beast. What of the mark in your forehead? A preoccupation with materialism and all that the mark of the beast can supply. The theology of having it all. Deification of materialism. Orwellian. The Twilight Zone. Except that some of it is already a staple of modern society and destined to get worse. The entire world economy now heaves and sighs on an ocean of computer technology. Mere numbers mean money, numbers which reproduce themselves almost at will, and the world trusts it more and more and more. Stars falling from the sky, polluting a third of the earth. Killing billions. Yes, billions. Killer satellites In a Star Wars strategy, laser beams from orbit, a third of the Earth killed. A very short war of this type in the Far East or the subcontinent, around India or Pakistan, would kill more than a third of the Earth, and would do it with lightning speed. The pale horse of pestilence, chemico-biological warfare, or strange and ungodly incurable diseases brought upon by a society where lifestyles have gone mad. It all reads like today's headlines. How could the prophet of Patmos have known all of this almost 2,000 years ago? Will the United Nations really stand in Jerusalem? Is it the sign spoken of by Jesus? Will the great King of the North rise at the head of a 10-nation federation? Will he stand in the rebuilt Temple of Solomon and declare himself a god? Are we the generation of revelation? Is this the time for Armageddon? And how will we know? And where will you be? Will you know in time? Born once upon the brightest star, there came a child of infinity. He spoke to wise men near and far about the many things he knew, and where he walked the purest flowers grew.